Hey guys, Brent Hull Wednesday design video. I'm going to break down a house, your traditional house, and some of the problems that come with drawings and diving into some of these details a little closer. Come join me. Okay, so we're working on a house. There's been so many houses I don't even remember where this is. I think it's in Ohio. Anyway, there's a number of problems here. And, basically, if you look at kind of the drawings that we had versus the drawing that, as I kind of marked it up, there's some details I wanted to get into that we run across, but I'm going to spend a little bit more time on them. Okay, so the dormers. I know I talk about dormers a lot, but look what happened when I take this window and push it up, because this window is the same as these windows down here. All the windows are this 4-light window. Let's just talk about that first. The 4-light window, there's not a strong historic precedent for it, okay? The 6-light, the 2/2, the 1/1, I can look at specific periods, but the 4/4, it's not really happening. Notice too, in here, and I talk about it quite a bit, but if I have a window, and this is my sash, okay? And the sash is, you got an upper and lower sash, those are the things that go up and down. I don't want to divide my sash in here, divide my lights up so that I end up with this horizontal rectangle, okay? Those of you who watch my videos know that kind of drives me crazy. Basically, during the classical period, all things are lifted and elevated. During the modern period, things are low slung and long, okay? Frank Lloyd Wright was a very low slung prairie style. He's the one that started a lot of that. And you'll notice that little window pane in there might be a square, but it's also starting to get down to starting to lay down sideways. And what's happening is we're talking about scale and proportion. We're talking about individual pieces and parts in here that either lift the eye or they don't. Now, what I've gone back with is I've gone with a 2-light, and you'll see on these windows, I've got a 6/6, I got a 2/2, I got a 2/2 here. I'm really pushing away from that 4/4. If we look back at it again, it just ends up looking modern, right? It looks like modern farmhouse. And so, it's hinting at a divide light window, but because these things basically become squares, they end up being odd to our eye. And so I'm changing that. Notice too that I'm changing the size of it because that graduated fenestration. Dormers, even if they're not graduating your fenestration, you are still want something smaller here. And then notice what size that little hat is right there. Notice how tall it's like a top hat, or like a Harry Potter cone hat on top of the head. And so I am not only shrinking the size of this dormer, the dormer window there, I'm pushing it up so that it's a smaller window. I think it looks a lot better. Now, look at some of the things that have been drawn, okay, but are weird, okay? I was looking at this, and we've got a vertical board and batten design here, okay? Why does this look so busy? Why does it look like stuff's going on here? And if I look at these corner boards, I'm assuming that corner board is about 4 inches. Maybe it's 5 or 6 inches. There's too many lines in here, okay? And here's why that matters, is because the framer might look at it, or the trim guy might look at it and go, oh, okay. And he'll take his tape and he'll measure how far between those boards that they end up getting, and you end up with this really busy line. Now, what was supposed to happen on a vertical board and batten building was that if this is your stud here, okay, right, and my studs are like this, okay, let's just pretend, then what I'm doing is there would be some sheathing in here, and then my vertical boards, okay, were typically 8, 10, 12, even 14 or 16 inches wide, okay? Now, if I do that again, okay, and I have a gap here, or even if this is tight, the batten goes right over top of that gap, okay? So the board and batten, this is the batten, that little 1x2 is the batten, and these are the boards, the vertical boards. Now, in the Victorian period, those battens might do this. They might go, right? They might be decorative, okay? They might actually have a little bit of play in them. And so this board and batten arrangement is very important. Well, I'm showing here, if we went 10 inches there on that board, let's just say we're using common smaller boards that we would find today, and I've got a 1x2 here, I've got at least 8 inches visible in between these things, not this. So if you aren't clear in these specifications, you can end up with something that isn't historically right, and it just kind of looks too busy. And the point of this thing is not to have all these vertical lines like a candy stripe, man. The other thing is the client told me that they were wanting hardy siding. Now, you've heard me, or might have heard me say, I don't like hardy siding. Why? Okay, I'll tell you. If you look at hardy siding, basically, if that siding goes down, it's basically a board like this. It's not beveled, okay? And what happens is that the thickness on this board at the end is maybe 3/8 of an inch, okay? 3/8, quarter to 3/8, which is really thin, okay? Because traditionally, the way siding worked, it would be beveled typically, and you would have 3/8 maybe at the top, and you could go down to 1/2, 5/8, somewhere in here at the bottom. Now, so what I'm saying is that you've got an extra quarter of an inch, roughly, right, in shadow line, okay? And so what happens is that when this hardy plank is put up, and because it's so thin, it doesn't project the shadow lines and the detail that is historical and is traditional. So, what I want them to do on this thing is I want them to manage this gap, okay? So the face that's showing, so they've got this plank going up, and you've got a face that's showing in here, okay? This face is what's really important, and it should be 4 to 5 inches, maybe 6 at the most, okay? So let's just say 4 to 6 inches in that face. When you get into 7, 8, 9 inches, what happens is you end up changing the scale into proportion. So again, I'm talking about small little details, but details that matter. And so the reason I don't like hardy plank is it's not beveled, it's too thin, it doesn't show the shadow lines, it's just a cheap product, okay? Here's another thing. If you have your stud wall, okay, and they put sheathing on it, okay? Let's just say that it's hardy, it's zip or something like that. And then you as a builder come along and you put the hardy plank on, okay? And they put let's see how they would have done it. They're gonna basically bevel it out like that. It's gonna be a beveled plank, right? As it goes like this. Well, what happens is you've got these spots in here that are stick tight to the sheathing. And what's going to happen is it can trap water. And because hardy is a cement product, because it's a cement, it's going to hold water against the sheathing here. And so you end up with possible damage behind the wall because you are, especially if you put foam inside your wall, is that you have an issue where this area can't breathe. Now, I'm always proposing that any siding, real siding especially, that gets put on a building should be put on furring strips, so that there's an air gap back here so that air can move, okay? I do that with siding, okay, wood siding, because wood siding is a 200 plus year product, 300, 400 years. Well, how do I know that? Because there's buildings that have had siding on them for 200, 300, 400 years, and they're still there, okay? We don't know how this concrete board is going to break down over time. Did you know it chips? Did you know that if it gets too wet, it kind of turns to mush? Did you know those things? Because no one's probably telling you that. So this is not a 200-year product, in my opinion, and we shouldn't be using it. So the builder thinks, oh, I'm putting a quality product on there, or I'm putting something that's going to be long-lasting. I'll never have to come back. I want no maintenance. There's no such thing. Because you do this, you put plastic or cement on your walls, and you might not have any damage on the outside, right? You won't have to ever paint again. You're going to be so happy about that, but you might be destroying your walls on the inside, okay? Just realize that there's no such thing as running away from maintenance, running away from problems, because you're either, repainting on the outside or fixing walls on the inside because of this material. The other problem I've got is these columns, okay? What they're showing there is a tapered column. The tapered column has a tradition in the arts and craft era, but they were very rarely full height columns. Typically, there was a big pier in here, okay? And then the tapered column was just on the top, okay? Sometimes it was a medium height pedestal and the tapered column, but not full height, okay? So these should be round columns, and the columns should have entasis. So instead of being, tapered, they go up a third, and they're a straight tube, and then they slowly taper in on the inside, so that you have a pretty column, okay? And what that does is it gives the eye movement, it gives the column believability, right? Natural form and shape so that it works out. And there you see the notes I'm making for this client saying, look, the bottom of the column is straight tube, but then it tapers as you get higher. The upper 2/3 of the column change. So all of these, parts and pieces begin to work because you've gone back to traditional details. Lastly, the raised seam metal roof, okay? And I'm gonna write this because I don't think people hear it. It's raised seam, S-E-A-M, metal, okay? Now what that means is that you've got two pieces of steel, okay? Steel sheet, and this goes back to Charleston and New Orleans still have raised seam metal roofs. But basically you've got this flat piece of steel or tin or lead, or depending on which area you're in. And what happens is the corners are the edges are turned up, okay? And then what happens, you have another piece and its edges are turned up. And then these get turned over and looped and crimped together, okay? So that when those come together, they're gathered together, they're crimped, they're turned over, they're crimped again, they're turned over, so that you have this seam right here. So here's your seam. It's a raised seam. It's raised off the face of the metal by 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that. And then it goes, 18, 16, 24 inches between this other thing. Now, what's happening today is that you'll hear your builder say things like oil canning. You don't want that. And so what they've done is they've come in and they've got these metals that have these raised things in the middle, okay, because they're trying to stop oil canning. Oil canning is basically because of the shift in temperatures and things like that, the metal moves a little bit differently, and you might get these like stretch marks or something on you're not harming the metal, you're basically seeing something, and people go, oh, I don't want that. Okay, or they're gonna give you this broken up metal roof, which has all these bumps and bruises in it because you're trying to avoid the oil canning. The most traditional thing is a flat piece of metal that goes across that's raised, that's then crimped together and runs across. So you'll see that I've got, instead of having all these lines again, okay, we have this raised seam metal roof that runs across here. Now, I'm kind of geeking out about all these little details, but there's a lot of times I'll just go through these videos and just say stuff without you understanding. Like, I didn't understand that people didn't realize what I was saying, okay? Raised seam, I guess start talking too fast. Metal roof, okay? And why you want these big fat pieces. And I'm dealing with this with a lot of clients right now. They're frustrated with the process because we get between them and the builder, and the builder starts pushing back on these things. You don't want that. You can't afford that. That's too expensive. That's going to take too long, right? All of these things. It causes stress. It causes anxiety, okay? I want you, okay, you're going to live here 40, 50, 100 years, however long you're going to give it to your family, okay? Let's build something that's right. And just not have a 1-year fight with your builder determine what happens for the next 40 years. Because you're going to come back and you're going to go, something's not quite right about that. I don't know what we missed. And it's all these small little things that I'm putting together here that will make a difference in the long term. So, a 2/2 window, right? That's going to convey a late 1890s, late 1880s. A 6/6, very traditional. It could be a number of different periods. 2/2, the 4/4 just isn't working for me. So it's all of these 5%, 3% issues that I'm fixing that make this so much better when it's here. And so that's what I'm sketching over, that's what I'm drawing. So a bunch of small little things that I'm trying to help you fight. I'm trying to help you win to build a traditional house. It's a fight today. And so I want to help you fight for these details and understand these details so that you can get a better looking house and a better designed house.